The Warsaw Ghetto boundary markers are memorial plaques and boundary lines that mark the maximum perimeter of the former ghetto established by the Germans in 1940 in occupied Warsaw, Poland. The markers were erected in 2008 and 2010 on 22 sites along the borders of the Jewish quarter, where from 1940 to 1943 stood the gates to the ghetto, wooden footbridges over Aryan streets, and the buildings important to the ghetto inmates. Description and unveiling. In order to preserve the memory of the perished Jewish quarter, the Jewish Historical Institute and the City Monument Protection Office took the initiative to feature in the public space of the Polish capital its most characteristic points on its former boundaries. The markers were designed by Eleonora Bergman and Thomas Lec in cooperation with E.W. Apostolika Kozłowska and Jan Jagielski. Each marker consists of three elements: a bronze plaque 60 cm by 70 cm with the map representing the ghetto's farthest borders and the pre-war street network featured on the map of Warsaw, and a pin indicating the exact location of the marked place. A plaque made of acrylic glass 36 cm by 50 cm with information in Polish and English about the place, its role in the history of the ghetto, and one or two historical photos, preceded by a brief history of the Warsaw Ghetto. By order of the German occupation authorities, the ghetto was cut off from the rest of the city on November 16, 1940. The ghetto area, surrounded by a wall, was initially 307 hectares. With time, it was reduced. Starting in January 1942, it was divided in two parts called the small and large ghettos. Approximately 360,000 Warsaw Jews and 90,000 from other towns were herded into the ghetto. Nearly 100,000 died of hunger. During the summer of 1942, the Germans deported and murdered close to 300,000 people in the gas chambers of Treblinka. On April 19, 1943, an uprising broke out in the ghetto. Until mid-May, fighters and civilians perished in combat or in the systematically burned ghetto buildings. The remaining population was murdered by Germans in November 1943 in the Majdanek, Poniatowar and Trawnicki concentration camps. Only a few survived. To the memory of those who suffered, fought and perished. The City of Warsaw, 2008. Cement strips 25 cm wide with the cast-iron bilingual sign Mer Ghetto 1940, Ghetto Wall 1943, placed in sidewalks and lawns showing the exact location of the ghetto walls. The dates 1940 to 1943 have symbolic meaning as the years when the Warsaw Ghetto existed. Therefore, they should not be treated literally because most of the commemorated places were excluded in 1941-1942. One site was included into the ghetto in 1941, and two in 1942. Most plaques were placed on the 2.3 meters tall cement posts that were specially designed on set pavement. The rest were placed directly on the walls of the buildings and structures. The markers were built between April and November 2008 and were inaugurated on the 19th of November 2008 by the mayor of Warsaw, Hanna Gronkiewicz-Waltz. On the 27th of January 2010, on the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, the 22nd marker was unveiled on site of the preserved ghetto wall in Sienna Street. The project was financed by the City of Warsaw and the Polish Ministry of Culture and National Heritage. Locations of the markers: Władysław Anders Street, corner of Wojtolewska Street. Here, on the site of the former Naluki Street, stood one of the most important ghetto gates. Through this very gate at 5:30 a.m. on the 19th of April 1943, the German, Latvian, and Ukrainian troops under the command of Ferdinand von Salmen-Frankenegg entered the ghetto. They were met with Jewish resistance, which sparked off the Warsaw Ghetto uprising. Bielanska Street, corner of Korra Street. Here the ghetto included the Great Synagogue in Telomaki Street and Central Judaic Library. This area was excluded from the Jewish district on 20 March 1942. Bonifratiska Street near Miedzy Parkowa Street. This point, at the former intersection of Bonifratiska and Oliborska Streets, was the northeastern corner of the ghetto. Over the northern part of Przebieg Street there was a wooden footbridge, one of 4 such structures built in the Warsaw Ghetto. Kłodna Street, corner of Elektoralna Street, commemorates the city court building on Lesno Street that was not included into the ghetto and became a meeting place for people from both sides of the wall and a key point for Jews endeavoring to escape to the Aryan side of Warsaw. In 1950, Biala Street, which led to the court from the south, was rebuilt approximately 200 meters to the west. Kłodna Street at the intersection with Alasna Street. The marker commemorates exclusion from the ghetto in December 1941, the area west of Alasna Street, as a result of which the Jewish district was divided into 2 parts called the large and the small ghettos. In order to ease heavy pedestrian traffic on Alasna Street on 26 January 1942, a wooden footbridge was erected over Kłodna Street, becoming one of the symbols of Holocaust after the war. 41 Kłodna Street. Here, from 16 November 1940 to December 1941, the western boundary of the ghetto ran along the eastern edges of the premises marked by Ronia Street, also one of the original 22 ghetto gates, closed Kłodna Street from the west. In December 1941, this part of the Wola district was excluded from the Jewish quarter and its border was moved to the middle of Alasna Street. 1 Parade Square. The southeast boundary of the ghetto ran along the premises here. On 5 October 1941, the ghetto border was moved to the middle of Sienna Street, Druiecki Avenue near Iron Gate Square. From this point westwards a narrow strip of land was excluded from the ghetto due to the role of Kłodna Street as an important east-west transport corridor. It included Morawski Market Halls, Morawski Barracks, and St. Charles Borromeo Church up to Alasna Street, Druiecki Avenue near John Paul II Avenue. This was the northern boundary of the small ghetto that ran from here westwards along the existing walls that divided the premises. Dazika Street near John Paul II Avenue. After the minor expansion of the ghetto in January 1942, this became the northwest corner of the Jewish quarter. Dazika Street near the intersection with Stocky Street. Here, opposite the Umschlagplatz, a ghetto gate was in operation from January 1942. 55 Freta Street. This was the eastern edge of the northern part of the Jewish quarter. The new town was excluded from the ghetto in December 1941. Malinowska Street. This brick wall along Malinowska Street and the Pałaki Cemetery was the northwestern boundary of the Jewish district from 16 November 1940 to December 1941. 49 51st Sokopora Street, the second marker commemorating Warsaw's largest Jewish necropolis and the adjacent Skra sports field. The latter was the only large undeveloped plot in the ghetto. In time it became a burial site with both individual and mass graves, as well as a place of executions, victims of which are honored by the nearby monument of Jews and Poles' common martyrdom. Many of those killed during the Warsaw Uprising of 1944 were also buried here. 53 Sienna Street, a part of the southern boundary of the ghetto made from the existing wall between Sienna 53 and Sienna 55 estates. On 5 October 1941, the border of this part of the Jewish quarter was moved to the middle of Sienna Street. Solidarnosci Avenue between the Warsaw Chamber Opera Building and the Calvinist Parish House. This so-called evangelical enclave included the Calvinist Church, the Parish House, Jelinski Palace, the Evangelical Hospital and a few buildings in Milna Street. It was surrounded on all sides by the ghetto, and the only connection with the Aryan part of the city was through the estate at 5 Prayarts, which had been demolished in September 1939. This location enabled the Calvinist clergy and parishioners to provide assistance to the Jews in the ghetto. Storky Street near Okopora Street. Here the boundary of the Jewish quarter ran along the southern wall of Temla and Amp Sweetanry, which was not included in the ghetto. Wiatowiska Street, corner of Nowiniarska Street. The only remaining fragment of the wall surrounding the northern part of the ghetto is preserved. Here, Wiatoszyska Street in Bolesław Kotrim, Mudson Square. The eastern boundary of the southern part of the ghetto ran here along the existing walls that divided the premises. In March 1941, the ghetto border was moved to the west Bania Street, Twarda Street near the intersection with Zlota Street. This was the southwest corner of the ghetto. One of its original 22 gates stood here and operated from the 16th of November 1940 till the 20th of January 1941. 63 Lasna Street. On the wall of the former Dashikan Amp Solche Metalworks factory building, here stood one of the major gates of the small ghetto. Lasna Street near the intersection with Solidarnosci Avenue. Here was one of the main gates to the ghetto, opposite the building of the Collegium Society at 84 Lesno Street, which housed the Labor and Statistics departments of the Jewish Council. In September 1941, that building, being a Jewish island on the Aryan side, was connected to the ghetto by a wooden footbridge at the second-floor level over Lasna Street. Bibliography. Engelking, Barbara Jacek. The Warsaw Ghetto, A Guide to the Perished City. Yale University Press. ISBN 9780300112344. Ghetto Wall 1940–1943. Remembrance Project. City of Warsaw. April 2008. Linia Pamięci. Stolica 23. April 2008. Oznaka Unihanik Gata. Kurie Wolski. Urzdzielnicy Wola M. Saint. Warsaw. Retrieved 14 January 2013. Pomniki. Miejskie Żydowskie. Urzdzielnicy Rodmyśl M. Saint. Warsaw. Retrieved 14 January 2013.